Many of us, myself included, are very good at lying to ourselves or not being entirely honest with ourselves. Quite frankly, because it makes us feel good, but that doesn't change the truth. It doesn't change reality. And it does end up having consequences down the road if you're not careful. Procrastination is a great example. So telling yourself that you will do something, not because it's actually true, but just because you want to feel better about not doing it. And then what ends up happening, it doesn't get done. And I can say from first-hand experience that a lot of the mistakes I made growing up can be attributed to my lack of transparency with myself. So not getting into the colleges that I wanted to when I was in high school, not feeling like the person I wanted to feel like or being the person I wanted to be, or even attracting the people that I wanted to attract. So in this video, I'm going to name just 3 of the many things you can do to fix that. So the first thing you got to do is know your motives, the real reason behind your actions rather than the fake one. And I say this because all too many times I've found myself feeling a little embarrassed or ashamed of the actual motives that I have, so I'll pretend that my motives are something else to justify my actions and convince myself that it's okay. So for example, if I'm in a group setting, sometimes I'll feel tempted to raise my hand and talk whenever prompted to do so. And I'll pretend to myself that the reason is just because I have a legitimate question or I want to be a contributing member of the team. But the reality is, under the surface, I just want to be the center of attention, and I like hearing myself talk most of the time. Another example would be people that are very angrily expressive about their political views. My question for those people is, do you actually care about the cause that you're rallying behind, or are you just looking for an excuse to be angry because it makes you feel powerful? And I'd argue that it's the latter for many people. And it's important to make these admissions to ourselves. So you have to stop and pretend that no one's watching and really take a good hard look in the mirror and ask yourself what your real motives are. And then you can start evaluating the consequences of your actions. So in the former example, if you just have to be that guy that always raises his hand and talks, then people are probably going to stop liking you eventually, think you're annoying, and just view you as that guy. In the latter case, people will just see through that and think that you're rather childish. And you can't really take yourself seriously because you don't actually stand for something. You don't believe in a legitimate cause. You just want to have an excuse to throw a temper tantrum. And number 2, you have to be willing to admit when you're wrong and accept responsibility for your actions. Because if you're not, then you'll just keep repeating the bad habits and causing problems, causing things not to go in your favor. So for example, if you're in a relationship with somebody and every time they come to you with a concern, you just blame them every single time, then eventually they're going to end things with you because nobody wants to be in a relationship like that. But if you still can't stop and admit that you're at least partially to blame for what went wrong, then you'll repeat that same pattern of behavior with the next person you meet, and then they'll end things with you, and you'll never truly have a lasting long-term relationship. So you have to be able to set your pride aside and admit that you're not a perfect person. And that's okay, because nobody is. And as soon as you make that admission, you've already set yourself apart from all those people who aren't willing to do that. And that's the first step to improving yourself. And lastly, you have to confront reality for what it is, instead of living in a dream world, because it's a harsh reality, but again, hiding from it is what makes us feel better. But the problem is that doesn't change reality. So you'll be in for a harsh awakening. You'll fall flat on your face because you're not going to see many of those things coming. So for example, when I was in high school, like I've talked about before, I used to think that life worked pretty much the same way as a movie. So I believed that people would put all the effort into making themselves my friends and I wouldn't have to put any work towards that I was destined for greatness and I would get into all these great colleges without really putting that much effort into it. But eventually I was in for that rude awakening that none of those things happened. And I realized again that I had to confront reality. And the harsh reality is that if you want something to happen in life, you have to make it happen. It's not going to just happen for you. Life doesn't care about you. You're on your own and you will have your fair share of setbacks and failures. And you have to learn what you can from them and move on rather than expecting that there's going to be some sad music playing in the background or that the credits are going to roll and you're going to live happily ever after. Because that's just not true. So to summarize, being honest with yourself entails not just confronting reality for what it is, but confronting yourself and understanding your true nature. So take a good hard look in the mirror and make some of those admissions. Understand what your motives are, your limitations, your weaknesses, rationalizations, and so on. And then you can start making actual progress in life. It might not be a very pleasant conversation to have, but it's an important one, rather than focusing on what's going to make you feel good. In that case, you're not really going to make any progress. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you next time.